unaware his pregnant ex-wife is now married to the city's most dangerous mafia boss. Ryan felt the satisfaction of cold muddy water hitting her swollen belly before he saw the terror in her eyes. Those same eyes that once begged him to stay home the night their 3-year-old son died in a hospital bed. Those same eyes that cried when he told her it was her fault, that her weak, defective genes killed their child. Those same eyes that watched him walk away with his mistress while she stood in divorce court alone. And now those eyes were staring at him in shock as filthy water soaked through her maternity clothes. Freezing against the belly where a miracle doctors said would never happen was growing. Ryan leaned out his Mercedes window, his face twisted with cruel satisfaction. Still living like the pathetic failure I left behind. Emma. Shopping at discount stores like some desperate woman who couldn't keep a man. His eyes dropped to her pregnant stomach with pure contempt. And you actually found someone stupid enough to knock you up. We both know your defective body can't carry a healthy child. You'll kill this one too, just like you killed Michael with your bad genes. Why did Ryan really splash mud on his pregnant ex-wife in broad daylight? What did Emma endure in that marriage that made her believe she was responsible for their son's death? And how did the revelation that she's married to a mafia boss leave Ryan so completely destroyed that he lost everything in 48 hours? Stay with me because what happens next will prove that karma doesn't just come for cruel men. It arrives in a black SUV with armed escorts, and the revenge is so perfectly executed it will leave you breathless. If you're ready to see how this story unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of what happens when cruel people mess with the wrong woman. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. 5 years ago, Emma Hayes was 24 years old, working as a trauma nurse at City General Hospital, married to Ryan Blackwell, a rising corporate executive who seemed to have everything figured out. They lived in an upscale suburban home with their 3-year-old son, Michael, a beautiful little boy with his mother's green eyes and his father's dark hair. But 8 months before everything fell apart, Michael was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and Emma's world shattered into a million pieces. The chemotherapy treatments were brutal. Emma took a leave of absence from the hospital to care for Michael full-time. She held his little hand through every session, wiped away his tears when he got sick, read him stories when he couldn't sleep. Ryan, meanwhile, grew increasingly absent. Important meetings, he'd say. Career-building events. I have to think about our future, Emma. But Emma didn't need him thinking about their future. She needed him present for their son's present. Michael's condition deteriorated rapidly. On the night he died, Emma called Ryan 23 times. 23 desperate calls while she watched her baby boy slip away in a hospital bed. Ryan's phone was on silent. He was at a corporate dinner, closing a deal, drinking whiskey with clients who would never remember his name. Michael died at 2:47 in the morning, and Emma held him alone, screaming for a husband who never came. Ryan arrived 6 hours later, still in his tailored suit, smelling like expensive cologne and alcohol. He stood at the foot of the hospital bed, uncomfortable, checking his phone like he had somewhere more important to be. The doctors said his type of leukemia is often genetic, Ryan said, his voice cold and clinical. Emma looked up at him, her face streaked with tears, her arms still wrapped around their dead son. "What are you saying?" she whispered. Ryan met her eyes with something that looked like accusation. "I'm saying this came from somewhere, Emma. My family has no history of cancer." The words hung in the air like poison. At Michael's funeral, Ryan played the role of grieving father perfectly for the cameras and colleagues. But in private, when no one was watching, he said the words that would haunt Emma for years. "If you'd given me a healthy son, he'd still be alive." And just like that, a single word entered their marriage like a disease. Defective. You're defective, Emma. Your genes are defective. You couldn't give me a healthy child. For the next 2 years, Ryan used that word like a weapon. At dinner parties, when people asked about children, he'd say with just enough emphasis, "We'd love more, but Emma has complications." To his colleagues, he'd confide, "My wife couldn't handle the stress of motherhood." He implied that Emma's genes had killed their son without ever saying it directly, letting people draw their own conclusions while he played the victim. Emma returned to nursing, working double shifts just to escape the house. She developed severe PTSD, Panic attacks that left her gasping for air in hospital bathrooms. Nightmares where she relived Michael's last night over and over. She went to therapy 3 times a week and took antidepressants that made her feel numb but never made her feel better. Ryan's affairs began, secretaries, colleagues, anyone who made him feel powerful. And then Vanessa Cole entered the picture as his new executive assistant. Young and ambitious and cruel in ways that matched Ryan perfectly. Everyone knew about the affair. Emma knew. But confronting it felt impossible when she could barely get out of bed most mornings. When Emma finally found the courage to ask Ryan about Vanessa, his response was chilling. "I need a woman who can give me a living child." "Emma, you can't do that." During one of her therapy sessions, Emma's doctor delivered news that felt like a final verdict on her worth as a woman. "Mrs. Blackwell, the trauma you've experienced has affected your reproductive system. Your chances of carrying another successful pregnancy are less than 5%. When Emma told Ryan, his response was 5 words that destroyed what little remained of her soul. "So you're useless in every way that matters." The final betrayal came on a Tuesday evening. Emma had been sent home early from her hospital shift after a severe panic attack during a trauma case. She walked into her bedroom to find Ryan and Vanessa in their bed. The bed she'd shared with her husband for 7 years. The bed in the house where their son had lived and died. Vanessa was wearing Emma's robe. Ryan didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He sat up casually, like Emma had interrupted a business meeting. "Maybe if you'd given me a reason to stay faithful," he said. Emma felt something inside her snap. "Our son died in the room down the hall," she said, her voice shaking. Ryan's response was immediate and brutal. "Our son died because of your genes. Don't blame me for moving on." Emma packed a bag that night, her hands shaking so violently she could barely zip it closed. She filed for divorce the next morning. Ryan didn't contest it. "Good," he said. "I need someone who can actually give me a legacy." But Ryan didn't just let her go quietly. He told everyone, their friends, his colleagues, their families, that Emma had abandoned Michael during his illness, that she was mentally unstable and neglectful, that she cheated during their son's cancer treatment. He painted himself as the devoted father and Emma as the villain who destroyed their family. Emma lost every mutual friend. She moved into a tiny studio apartment and worked night shifts at the hospital, rebuilding her life one painful day at a time. 14 months after the divorce, Emma was working a night shift in the city general emergency room when everything changed. At 2:30 in the morning, a man was rushed in with a gunshot wound to his shoulder. The circumstances were suspicious. No police had been called yet, and 2 large men in expensive suits stood guard at the door like sentries. The man was conscious, refusing to answer questions about how he'd been shot. Emma was assigned to treat him, and when she looked past the blood to his face, she saw dark eyes filled with a dangerous calm, an expensive watch, and the kind of presence that made the air feel heavier. The man introduced himself as Dominic, and Emma knew she should call the police. Every protocol said she should, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the way he looked at her without demanding anything. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the part of her that had stopped believing in rules after watching her husband destroy her legally and systematically. "You're going to help me," Dominic said quietly, "and you're going to forget I was here." Emma met his eyes steadily. "I'm a nurse," she said. "I help everyone. I don't need threats." She treated his wound efficiently and professionally, and Dominic watched her hands work with something that looked like fascination. "You're not afraid of me?" he asked. Emma's response was honest. "I've seen worse things than gunshot wounds." When Dominic left, he placed $5,000 in cash on the table. "For your silence." Emma didn't take it. 3 days later, Dominic appeared in the hospital cafeteria during Emma's lunch break. "Have coffee with me," he said. "Just coffee." Emma should have said no. She should have reported him, run away, protected herself. But she'd spent 5 years protecting herself from a man who destroyed her with legal cruelty, and there was something oddly honest about someone who admitted he was dangerous. So she said yes. Over the next 6 months, Emma learned exactly who Dominic Valentino was. She Googled him, read the news articles, understood that he controlled an $8 billion criminal empire across the East Coast, that he was feared and powerful and deadly. And yet, When they met for coffee in quiet cafes or walked through parks at dawn, Dominic was honest in ways Ryan never had been. "I'm not a good man, Emma," he told her one evening. "I do terrible things." Emma met his eyes. "I know what you are." Dominic's expression was unreadable. "And you're still here?" Emma's answer surprised even herself. "I spent 5 years with a man who destroyed me legally and systematically. At least you're honest about being dangerous." Dominic fell in love with her courage, with the way she refused to be impressed by power or intimidated by reputation. Emma told him about Michael, about the leukemia, about Ryan's cruelty and the word defective that had become her identity. When she finished, Dominic's face had gone cold and lethal. "Give me his name," he said quietly. Emma shook her head. "No, I don't want revenge. I just want to forget." Dominic respected her boundaries, but he filed the name Ryan Blackwell away in his memory like a debt waiting to be collected. Their relationship deepened into something neither of them had expected. Dominic showed Emma what protection really meant, not control disguised as love, but fierce, absolute safety. No one threatened her. No one even looked at her wrong. For the first time in years, Emma felt like she could breathe without waiting for the next attack. 6 months into their relationship, Dominic took Emma to his private estate outside the city. "I need to tell you something," he said, and Emma braced herself for bad news. Instead, Dominic dropped to one knee. "Marry me." Emma stared at him in shock. "You're a mafia boss. I'm a nurse. This is insane." Dominic's voice was raw with emotion. "I know, but I've never felt safe with anyone until you. You make me feel human." Emma thought about Ryan, about being defenseless, about what it meant to have real power protecting you instead of destroying you. "Yes," she said. They married in a private ceremony with 30 people, family and associates. No media, no public announcement. Dominic's mother, Sofia Valentino, welcomed Emma with warmth that made her cry. "You brought light back to my son's eyes," Sofia said. Emma became Mrs. Valentino quietly, keeping her job at the hospital, living a double life that felt surreal. Ryan had no idea she'd remarried. 3 months into the marriage, Emma felt nauseous during a hospital shift. She dismissed it as stress, but when the nausea persisted for a week, she took a pregnancy test in the hospital bathroom, her hands shaking so badly she could barely open the package. 2 lines appeared. Positive. Emma's knees buckled and she slid down the bathroom wall. Not joy, not yet, just pure terror. The doctors had said 5% chance. They'd said her body was too damaged. Michael's face flashed through her mind, and Ryan's voice echoed. "You'll kill this one too." She called Dominic, her voice breaking. "I need you. Now." Dominic arrived in 15 minutes, breaking every traffic law. He found Emma on the bathroom floor, showing him the test with trembling hands. "I can't do this again," she whispered. "I can't lose another baby." Dominic knelt beside her and took her face in his hands. "You won't be alone. Every doctor, every specialist, every moment, I'm here." At 4 months, doctors confirmed the pregnancy was stable and healthy. At 5 months, an ultrasound revealed they were having a girl. Emma cried happy tears for the first time since Michael died. At 6 months, her bump was showing beautifully, and Dominic's family celebrated the first Valentino granddaughter with joy that felt overwhelming. Emma took a morning off to visit her old neighborhood, wanting to pick up comfort foods at the Savamart she used to shop at. She convinced Dominic she didn't need security for just 1 hour. "I just want to feel normal," she said. "Just want to be Emma for an hour." She wore a simple maternity dress and worn sneakers, her hair in a ponytail, carrying grocery bags filled with pickles and ice cream and orange juice. All the random cravings that made her smile. She was crossing the parking lot, one hand protectively on her belly, when she heard the engine rev. A white Mercedes accelerated toward a massive puddle right beside her. Emma barely had time to process it before the impact. A tsunami of muddy water exploded over her body, soaking her from head to toe, covering her pregnant belly, drenching her face and hair. Emma stood there frozen, hands instinctively covering her stomach, and then she saw him. Ryan. That face. Those eyes. That smile she used to think meant love but now recognized as cruelty. "Oh my God. Emma." Is that you? Ryan's voice was pure delight, pure victory. Vanessa sat in the passenger seat wearing designer sunglasses. Laughing like this was entertainment. Richard, you're terrible, Vanessa giggled. Is that really your ex-wife? In the flesh, Ryan said, looking Emma up and down like she was roadkill. Still shopping at Savamart. Still living that budget life. Some things never change. Huh? Emma couldn't speak. She just stood there, 6 months pregnant, covered in filthy water that smelled like sewage and oil. Ryan's eyes landed on her belly and his smile widened into something vicious. Wait, are you pregnant? Emma's hands shook. She said nothing. Ryan's laughter turned cruel. Oh my God, Vanessa, look. Some desperate fool actually knocked up my defective ex-wife. He leaned farther out the window, his voice designed to hurt. We both know your useless body can't carry a child. Emma. You'll kill this one too, just like you killed Michael with your bad genes. What idiot agreed to get you pregnant? Does he know you're broken? The words hit Emma like physical blows. Her vision blurred. Not from the muddy water, but from memories flooding back. The hospital room. Michael's last breath. Ryan's voice sang defective. Years of believing she deserved this. Ryan revved his engine. You know, I always wondered what happened to you after the divorce. Guess you're still exactly where I left you. Struggling through life, poor and pathetic, pretending you're not broken. Vanessa's laughter mixed with the sound of distant traffic. Ryan, she looks miserable enough already, Vanessa said. Does she? Ryan grinned wider. I think she looks exactly like what she is. A failure. The Mercedes sped off, engine roaring, leaving Emma standing in a puddle of filthy water. Groceries destroyed, dignity shattered. A teenager nearby had filmed the whole thing on their phone, the video already uploading to social media. Emma's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. The screen was wet. Her fingers left muddy prints. She dialed Dominic's number and he answered on the first ring. Hey love, how's shopping? Can you pick me up? Emma's voice cracked. Something happened. 20 minutes later, a black Range Rover with tinted windows pulled up, and 2 security personnel stepped out first, scanning the area like they were protecting royalty. Then Dominic emerged. The moment he saw Emma, covered in mud, shaking, crying, hands protectively on her pregnant stomach, his face went from concern to something cold and lethal. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders and Emma told him everything. Every word Ryan said. Every laugh. The comment about killing this baby too. Dominic's jaw clenched so tightly Emma could hear his teeth grind. His hands were gentle on her face, but his eyes were murder. He helped her into the car and spoke quietly to his head of security. Find out everything about Ryan Blackwell. Everything. Where he works, who he works with, where he gets his money, who he owes, where he lives. And find that video. Within 4 hours, the video had gone viral. 6 million views. The comments were vicious. Who does this to a pregnant woman? That's someone's wife. This man is a psychopath. Then someone recognized Emma from a hospital charity event. Wait, that's Emma from City General. She's the sweetest person. By morning, Ryan woke to his phone exploding with calls. His consulting business partner demanded an immediate meeting. Our clients are pulling contracts, the partner said, his face pale. All of them. Ryan's confusion turned to panic. Why? What happened? The partner's hands shook. They won't say. They just said it's not worth the risk. Within hours, Ryan lost $200,000 in contracts. That afternoon, Ryan's bank called. Mr. Blackwell, there's been unusual activity on your accounts. We're freezing them pending investigation. Ryan couldn't access his money. By evening, the leasing company repossessed his Mercedes. Payment dispute, they said. We need the vehicle back. Ryan was left stranded on the street. The next morning, Ryan's landlord received an anonymous offer. Someone paid $50,000 cash for Ryan's lease to be terminated. Ryan had 48 hours to vacate. That afternoon, Vanessa met Ryan at a cafe. I can't do this anymore, she said coldly. You're broke, and frankly, you're bad for my reputation. She left with a hedge fund manager she'd met online the week before. That evening, Ryan received an unmarked envelope slipped under his door. Inside were photos of him splashing mud on Emma. A single typed note read, "You hurt someone important. That was a mistake." Ryan's blood ran cold. He suddenly understood that something much bigger than social media outrage was happening. Someone with real power was dismantling his life piece by piece. 3 weeks later, Dominic Valentino hosted his annual charity gala at the city's most luxurious hotel. $1,000 per plate, benefiting the Children's Hospital, attended by 200 guests, business leaders, politicians, and the city's elite who knew exactly who Dominic was and what he controlled. Emma wore an emerald green gown custom-made for her 7-month bump. She glowed, radiant, her hair professionally styled, wearing a diamond necklace that had been Dominic's wedding gift. Dominic stood at the podium with Emma beside him. "Tonight, I want to introduce someone very special," he said, his voice filling the room. The crowd went silent. Everyone understood this was significant. "My wife, Emma Valentino, is carrying our first child, a daughter." The room erupted in applause, genuine and fearful. Dominic continued, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. "Family is everything to me. My wife, my daughter, they are protected absolutely." He let the words hang in the air. "Anyone who threatens my family, who causes them harm, will discover that some mistakes can't be undone." The message was crystal clear to everyone in the room. Cameras flashed. Emma stood radiant and protected beside the most dangerous man in the city. Meanwhile, Ryan watched from his studio apartment, all he could afford now, on an old television with poor reception. He saw Emma, his defective ex-wife, standing beside Dominic Valentino. Recognition hit him like ice water. He realized with sickening clarity who she'd married. He realized what he'd done, who he'd threatened, whose family he'd attacked. Ryan's phone rang. Unknown number. The voice on the other end was calm and terrifying. "Mr. Blackwell, you'll stay away from Mrs. Valentino. You'll never speak her name. You'll forget she exists. If you don't, the next conversation won't be a phone call. Do we understand each other?" Ryan's voice shook. "Yes." The call ended. Ryan's consulting business never recovered. He ended up working minimum wage security at a shopping mall, living in a studio apartment, afraid of every shadow, jumping at every unexpected sound. He saw Emma's photo in newspapers, her charity work, her beloved status in the community. 3 months later, Emma gave birth to Isabella Maria Valentino. Healthy and perfect. 7 pounds, 8 ounces. Dominic cried holding his daughter. This fierce, dangerous man reduced to tears by the miracle of new life. Emma healed from her trauma with therapy, support, and the kind of love that actually protected instead of destroyed. She found purpose using Dominic's resources to help other abused women escape dangerous situations, opening a network of shelters funded by his empire. Emma didn't need to destroy Ryan. She just needed to survive long enough for her life to eclipse his completely. The Bible says in Psalm 34 verse 18, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Ryan sowed cruelty and reaped terror. Emma sowed resilience and reaped a kingdom in the shadows. She learned that sometimes the monsters aren't under the bed. Sometimes they're the ones keeping you safe. If this story moved you, subscribe and turn on notifications right now for more stories about people who refuse to stay broken. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and share this with someone who needs to remember that sometimes the best protection comes from the most unexpected places. God bless you, and remember, karma doesn't forget. It just waits for the right moment to strike.